Pure and persecuted Christianity provokes a practice for others. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath School Study Group. This is part number 3 of a 5-part series, Caring for the Community. Remember that the central issue of the great controversy is, are we going to love or live for God? Or are we going to love or live for ourselves? Making the decision to live for God, we find that something happens, a powerful thing happens, and that is that the devotion now and the passion that we have for God spills over into compassion that we have for God's children. Not even for God's children alone, but even for people, period, all people that God has made. But before we talk about this, I want to thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Make sure you like this video, hit the thumbs up button, and pass it on to someone else. And visit us online at changeministry.org. We've been looking at the central issue of love versus selfishness. And it seems like we're going through the book of Acts to see this in real time, to see how this was practiced in the early church. And it's interesting that when we look at what they went through and we look at what we are going through, we will find that God is using the persecution or the trials to purify us. But that purification process does not isolate us in the sense that even though we are becoming less like the world, we still have an impact on the world that we are less like. By becoming not like that world, rather than it isolating us, it actually sharpens us. It makes the witness sharper. It makes the light brighter. It makes the gospel louder because we're being changed more into the image of Christ. So when, for example, you go to Acts chapter 2, it says what happens. They all believed, but all that believed were together and they had all things in common. They sold their possessions and goods, and they parted them to all men, as every man had need. And they, continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, did eat their meat with gladness and a singleness of heart. Notice the sprouts, the tendrils that come from that single stem of belief. Because they all believed, all of these branches, all of these outcomes were the result of a single decision. To love God, essentially now I'm going to love people. And when they did this, the church actually grew. So now when you see this happening in the church, that's why it's no coincidence if you keep reading now, say Acts chapter 3, for example, when Peter is going along and he sees this person who is incapacitated, Peter says, "Silver and gold have I none, but look at what I have. Such as I have, give I thee. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." And Peter took him by the right hand and lifted him up, and immediately this man's feet and ankle bones received strength. All Peter had was a love for God. He had a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that relationship with Jesus Christ extended into practical, purposeful, powerful change for somebody who couldn't walk. Notice loving God leading to love people to the point that the Lord chooses to manifest his power by healing this brother. So this is his pure Christianity, albeit it's pure because it was being persecuted. That actually pushes out and it presses out the power of God on others around the pure who are being persecuted. And even over here in Acts chapter 6, where the church is being purified through persecutions, but it's provoking this practice for others to where the church is growing, the needs are expanding. So they said, "Wherefore, brethren, look you out among you 7 men of honest report, full of the Holy Ghost and wisdom, whom we may appoint over this business. But we will give ourselves continually to prayer and to the ministry of the word." Because of what God is doing, the believers believing in Jesus, and that relationship now resonating in loving one another, there were so many people being loved, the needs were growing. They said, okay, we need to set aside some deacons, some folks who are going to look out for this practical aspect of the ministry, while we're going to look at some of the more theological and the spiritual aspects and growing in the faith. This happens, and it's not a busyness, but it's business. God's business. And God's business is to bless. God's business is to serve. Jesus was trying to teach us this when he was here, and he's trying to use us not only to learn, but to teach the world the same. We are blessed and promised for the purpose of blessing others. And I hope that this helps us to see that your life makes a difference. The life that God has saved, the life that Jesus has covered in his righteousness, it now has a purpose, and that purpose is for power. The power to make an impact on others around us every single day until the great day when the very source of our power, Jesus Christ, comes to take home those who by his grace have been purified, have been persecuted, all for the sake of provoking a practice of loving others.